Episode 12, Are We Alone in the Universe? Hello, I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world. It's another hot, sunny day here in Sao Paulo. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about if we are alone in the universe, or are there other intelligent civilizations out there? Specifically, we're going to discuss something called the Fermi Paradox. If you don't know what this is, then don't worry. All will be explained very shortly. I actually recorded this episode during the weekend and invited my Brazilian cousin, Pedro, on the podcast. Pedro is a bit of a geek, like me, so he enjoys talking about topics like this. So I thought he would be the ideal person to have as a guest for this week's episode. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This episode is going to be challenging. Firstly, because I had some technical difficulties with the software that I normally use to record, so the audio is not great, but it's still good enough, I think. Secondly, this is a natural conversation, so we speak at a normal speed. As you'll hear, Pedro speaks English like a native, and despite my attempt to encourage him to speak more slowly, you can hear that he speaks quite quickly. Third and finally, the subject. The Fermi Paradox is quite a challenging one to understand unless you're already familiar with the specific vocabulary and concepts that we will discuss. So, I want to apologize in advance if you find this episode in particular more difficult than normal. However, I do have a couple of solutions for you. Firstly, I strongly recommend that you use the free transcript available for this episode at schoolofduda.com. You can read it while you listen and make notes. It also comes with a list of the most important vocabulary. So, if you have not yet discovered the benefits of using the transcripts, then now is the time. The second solution I want to let you know about is that I've just published a new English course called Are We Alone in the Universe, where I go into detail about the Fermi Paradox. And I've decided to make this course completely free for you. I'll leave a link to where you can find this course on my website. So if you finish listening to this podcast and find it interesting and you want to learn more about this subject, then you can do my course. Or if you find this episode too difficult to understand, then maybe try doing the course first, and then listening to this podcast episode should be much easier. If you want to develop your English fluency, then this course is the perfect opportunity for you to experience the comprehensible input approach that I use to teach at School of Duda. And this time, you can try it for free. Okay, this is enough of an introduction. Let's begin. Here is Pedro Coutinho and the Fermi Paradox. Okay, here I am today on a Sunday afternoon with my Brazilian cousin, Pedro. Welcome, Pedro.
Hello.
So just say you're not actually my cousin, you're my wife's cousin, but I consider you to be a cousin.
That's nice of you.
If I had a Brazilian cousin, I would choose you.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I just want to make you feel special for,
It does that.
taking time out of your Sunday to come here. Thank you for coming on the podcast. My first question, what I should talk about. So today we're going to talk about the topic of are we alone in the universe? Are there other intelligent civilizations? And specifically, we're going to talk about the Fermi Paradox, which is something that you're interested in.
I am very much.
Yes. But before that, I want to just ask you about languages. So this is a language podcast about learning English. In my opinion, you speak English very well.
Oh, thank you.
So my first question is, what languages do you speak?
I speak Portuguese as my mother tongue, of course, being Brazilian, being born here. I also speak English, having lived abroad a long time and having used English as my primary language for a little while. I'm going to say some French. I used to be fluent in French, but it's been such a long time since I've practiced it thoroughly. So average French, I guess, and a tiny bit of Italian. Not enough to speak, but enough to make my Spanish sound ridiculous because they're quite close.
Okay, so you're native Portuguese, obviously, because you're Brazilian. You speak English, I would say, to a native level. You speak French, like what, intermediate?
Yeah, today I will consider myself intermediate to advanced.
And a bit of a basic Italian.
Very basic Italian. Enough to order pizza and beer, which is pretty much what you need to get around. So
okay,
advanced.
Okay,
Yes.
and you learned French and Italian from living in Europe? Or?
From living French, from living in France, Switzerland, from living in Geneva, and Italian from a tiny little stint in Rome.
Okay, good stint.
Yeah,
a tiny little period of time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So vocabulary, we're getting into it right away.
So okay. So Pedro speaks very well, perhaps too well, because he speaks very quickly. So I'm going to remind him, speak slowly for our viewers. Duda, do you want to come in quickly? Duda, my daughter's just no, she's good. Okay. So so one more question before we start talking about the Fermi Paradox. Do you consider yourself a person who enjoys learning languages, or did you just learn them out of necessity because of where you were living?
I think learning languages is really interesting when you learn about the culture that's behind them. So that's something that really interests me. I'm really into culinary and food. So that's something that attracts me, learning about different cultures. And, there's different ways you can learn about this culture, including how they speak and how language impacts how they work as a society. So that's something that really interests me.
Okay, but like today, do you actively study languages, or is it more of a passive thing that you just use languages like English or French?
Today, I use English, especially every day in my work. I work for international companies, so English is our main language. I haven't really been trying to learn new languages, but that's something that might change. Let's see how the podcast goes.
Okay, cool. So, right, let's get into the subject today of the podcast. So we're going to talk about the Fermi Paradox. Would you like to try and define and explain the Fermi Paradox to the listeners, or do you want me to do it?
I can certainly try.
Okay.
Cool. So the Fermi Paradox is the paradox, the apparent contradiction between the fact that the universe is so large and so old, and there's been so many chances for life to emerge, with the fact that we don't know any alien life. We have no evidence of alien life existing. So it's a paradox. It's something that's contradictory.
Okay, I think that's a very good definition, explanation. So yeah, basically the Fermi Paradox was created by an Italian physicist called Enrico Fermi, and he did all the calculations, and he estimated that there should be, perhaps as many as 100,000 intelligent civilizations in our galaxy alone, let alone the rest of the universe. And yet we have no contact with other aliens or civilizations. We don't see them. So this is strange to him. This is a contradiction. So this is the paradox. This is the Fermi Paradox. Okay. So that's what it is. What I want to talk about first is the Kardashian Scale.
Okay.
So you familiar with this, Pedro?
Roughly. So I know the Kardashian Scale is a way to give categories to different societies, different levels of maturity of society. So a 1 in the Kardashian
type 1.
Type 1 would be
type 1 civilization.
Civilizations, that's the word I was looking for. So a type 1 civilization would be a civilization that's able to harness all the energy from a planet, and then it grows from there, like a whole solar system, eventually a galaxy, something along those lines.
That's right. So you have type 1, and they are able to harness all of the energy from that planet. So harnesses to take advantage of all the available energy. Type 2 civilization is a civilization that is able to harness all of the energy in their solar system. Is that right?
No. Sounds right. And then the whole galaxy, which is a type 3.
Yeah, type 3 is the whole galaxy, right? That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounds good to me.
Okay. So according to Carl Sagan, he says that we're not quite a type 1 civilization. We are a 0.7.
Oh.
Okay. So we can harness a lot of the energy on our planet, but we still have a way to go until we reach a type 1, basically.
Okay, so does that mean we're using fossil fuels and solar energy? How does that?
Yeah,
how does that
I guess we're using fossil, solar, wind, hydro, but there's a lot of energy still available to us that we don't yet have the technology or the systems to take advantage of.
Yeah, kids on playgrounds, we haven't quite tapped into that massive amount of energy yet.
Yeah, what, like kids just running around and harnessing the energy. Yeah, there's a way to go. So yeah, there's this idea, this Kardashian Scale, where they categorize civilizations based on how much energy they're able to use and take advantage of. And the idea is that the more advanced they are, the more intelligent they are, the better their technology, and the more energy they're able to use. Okay, so we would expect that as time progresses, we would have more type 2 and type 3 civilizations in a galaxy. And if they are that advanced, then they should be able to travel, perhaps, and visit us. And however, we don't see them. Okay, so this is part of the paradox. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing I want to talk to you about is the Great Filter.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're familiar with the Great Filter?
Again, roughly, I'm really into science fiction, so I hear a lot about these things. My understanding of the Great Filter is that there's different moments which a civilization will go through that might wipe it out. For instance, one of the great filters that's being talked about is the nuclear threat. Back in the 60s, where we had the Cold War, maybe it's possible that different cultures out there, different civilizations got to a point where they discovered nuclear energy and they just wiped themselves out of existence. Hence why we don't see them and when looking out at the stars.
Yeah, so that's good. So yeah, one of the explanations is the reason why we don't see these other intelligent civilizations is simply because they don't really exist, because there's something, they call it the Great Filter. So it's like a wall that life, as it develops, as it evolves, it hits this Great Filter, this wall, and it kind of destroys it. And most civilizations, they develop and to a certain point, and then they're just destroyed by something. So it might be an asteroid, or it might be a a gamma ray burst, or it might be that they develop technology to a point where they just destroy themselves. So like a nuclear bomb, as you said, or
artificial intelligence. We're quite close to that.
Yeah,
let's see how it goes
on the horizon. Or we develop some bio weapon like a virus or something. So yeah, one idea is that maybe the Great Filter is ahead of us, our human civilization, and at some point, perhaps soon, we're going to hit it. So we're going to, for example, have a nuclear war that destroys our civilization, or we develop AI and it gets out of control and it destroys us. So this is one possibility.
Those are two very real possibilities.
Yes, it could happen.
Yeah.
And maybe that happens to every civilization. Maybe occasionally one civilization gets lucky and develops into a type 2 or a type 3 civilization. So this is one theory. Or maybe the Great Filter we've already passed through it. So maybe at the very beginnings of life, when it evolves, we as a human civilization got through the Great Filter, and as a consequence, we're the only ones out there in our galaxy. There's no other civilizations.
Okay. Lonely.
It's a lonely existence. Yeah. So that's possible. Okay. So that's it. And then there's other people who believe that other intelligent civilizations do exist in our galaxy, in the Milky Way, and perhaps there's as many as 100,000 of them. That's one of the predictions. And yet we don't have contact with them. So there's many different theories about why we don't have contact with them. And I recently published a course about the Fermi Paradox and about this subject. and we look at 10 different possible explanations. So I'm going to start talking about a few of them with you.
Okay.
Get your opinion, Pedro.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so I've got my notes here. So number one, so other intelligent civilizations exist, but they just came here before we were here. So they reckon that sentient humans, so conscious humans, have been around for about 50,000 years. Writing has been around for about 5,000 years. So maybe aliens came like 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago,
Oh, and
nobody recorded it.
Okay, I'm just joking, by the way.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
The pyramids, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah. How about we rank all of these and see, like, in my opinion, what we think?
Okay, like 1 to 10. Scale is 1. That sounds good.
I think that's probably like an 8, because if alien life exists out there and is a lot older than us, why not? Why they could come here and see, like, oh, there's a bunch of monkeys, who cares, and then just leave. I think that's a pretty plausible explanation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it takes, like light years to travel across the galaxy, right? So maybe they just come every 1 million years and they see what's happening, and we just weren't here. So I think it's very plausible.
Jump in, have a quick look, and be like, okay, well, let's be back in another 1,000 years or so.
Okay. And you made a joke before about the pyramids. So what do you think, the pyramids were created by aliens?
No, I don't really think that. I think we were pretty crafty back then. We can definitely build the pyramids, but it's fun to think about.
It is a conspiracy theory, right?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Possible. Okay. So possibility number 2. The galaxy has already been colonized, but we just live in some desolate rural area of the galaxy. So the idea is, all the civilizations, all the intelligent civilizations are in like the center, and they're all in contact, they're communicating. But we're just way, way out on the edge of the galaxy, and nobody's bothered to go that far yet.
Yeah, that's a premise from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? Where we're just this really uneventful place. We're just, in the suburbs somewhere, quite
just more interesting.
Yeah. I don't actually know where we are in terms of the galaxy. We might be in the suburbs. I honestly don't know.
We're right out on the edge of the spiral. So
we are
just we're far out in the countryside.
Okay. I'll give that a 6 because I guess we are in the countryside. At the same time, we know the countryside pretty well. We go hiking there, so we might get visits every once in a while.
Okay, possibility number 3. The entire concept of physical colonization is hilariously backward concept to more advanced species. Okay, so the idea is, once a civilization becomes so intelligent and so advanced, the idea of physically traveling, across the galaxy is just a ridiculous thing, because they can, upload themselves to a virtual reality, or they can,
metaverse.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a possibility.
That is. We hear a lot about. We hear a lot about. The metaverse is obviously a bit silly, but we hear a lot about living in a simulation. How this could all be a simulation of a higher life form or something. So that sounds plausible to me. I'll give it a 7. So right between the first two.
In this one, it's like we live in a physical reality.
Okay.
But the other civilizations, they've gone into a simulation or a virtual reality.
Just as plausible, in my opinion. I'll stick to my 7.
Okay. Possibility 4. Now, I warned you, Pedro, this is a bit scary, this one.
Oh, okay.
There are scary predator civilizations out there, and most intelligent life knows better than to broadcast any outgoing signals and advertise their location. Ooh. So this is the idea that there's like a super scary predator civilization, and when they see another civilization like ours emerging and getting more intelligent, they see it as a threat. It's like a virus that spreads across the galaxy. So at some point they go and they kill other civilizations. Okay, so most other civilizations, they know to keep quiet.
Okay, yeah, that's really likely. I mean, we know how we are such destroying creatures, so yeah, I that's probably true. But that being said, we have Will Smith, So in an Independence Day scenario, I'm pretty sure we're covered. We're good then.
Okay, so what if aliens come and attack us?
Will Smith will
Will
sort
Smith
it out,
will
yeah.
give him a little slap or something.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So, okay. So, so I'm going to skip to number 6. I'm going to skip 5 because it's a bit similar. Okay, number 6 is there's plenty of communications out there, but we don't have the technology to listen to it. Our technology is too primitive.
See, I think that's one of the most likely ones. As we matured in our civilization, we stopped broadcasting so many waves because we have better ways of communicating. And since we know that waves spread out and become less powerful as they go off into space, there's even something called the inverse square law, if I'm not mistaken. So as things go further, as radio waves travel further out into space, they become a lot less powerful. There's just a really good chance that we don't have sufficiently advanced electronics to capture what's coming to us. And as we grow more advanced, we stop emitting so many waves. We have more efficient ways of communicating. So I think this is probably the most likely scenario where if there are some advanced civilizations out there, to just using means of communication which we're not advanced enough to see.
But that's true now. Like we're emitting less waves when we communicate.
It is. So before we used to send out radio signals,
radio and TV.
Yeah, TV signals, radio signals. Nowadays we have fiber optics and we have light rays and stuff. There's a show called The Expanse, and they have this really clever mechanism where they send tight beams of light to communicate over really large distances. Chances are we're moving towards something like that. Instead of broadcasting, the word broadcasting, having a broadcast, instead of broadcasting something, we have a tight cast, if you will. So a tight beam really narrowing down information, which makes it faster and more reliable.
Okay.
And we've seen that happen here. There's no reason why other advanced civilizations wouldn't do the same, if not more. So yeah, I'll give that a 10 out of 10.
Okay. Oof.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Hard to beat.
Okay, possibility 7. We're receiving contact from other intelligent life, but the government is hiding it.
Oof, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, you think that's possible?
Yeah, I don't think it's possible because I don't know about your listeners, but my experience with the government is not being too good. I don't think they can keep secrets all that well.
A little bit incompetent.
Yeah, tiny bit. Yeah. That's just fun to think, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, well, in my course, like we talk about how, most governments are very incompetent. They're not very good at keeping secrets, especially in today's age, in our modern day world where everyone has a camera on their phone. Pretty easy to, share information if you see a UFO. But yeah, like in the course we talk about how the US government 2 years ago, they released 3 videos of UFOs flying near the coast of America. And they basically said, we don't know what this is. They're moving at such high speeds and they're doing maneuvers, like movements that are so different from human aircraft that they just don't know what it is. So basically they're saying, maybe it's aliens, maybe it's like the Chinese, maybe it's them.
Maybe it's the Brazilians, who knows?
Probably not
likely.
but maybe they've developed this new spacecraft and they're just keeping it a secret and blaming it on the aliens.
I mean, it could be, right? There could be a sort of propaganda to make us focus on something else while something bigger is going on. I think that's ripe for exploring and making up conspiracies. I think it is a fun one, but an unlikely one at best.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm totally open. I'm like, it could be aliens flying around, or it could just be like the US government or some human organization, and they developed some new spacecraft and they want to keep it a secret.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
To be just a bunch of weather balloons in odd angles. I don't believe that personally, but it could be. Why not? We can't rule anything out. Or it could be aliens.
Could be. Okay. possibility 8. So this is my favorite one, by the way. So this is the zoo hypothesis.
Okay.
Okay. So the idea that planet Earth is like a zoo, and other alien civilizations, they come here and they observe us, they watch us like they're on safari. So like we would go and watch the elephants or the lions or whatever. So the aliens come here and they watch us and they're kind of protecting us. And there's some sort of special rules and codes where they're not allowed to make contact with us because we're more primitive or something. But yeah, I like this theory because I feel a bit safer. I feel like, if things get really bad here, maybe the aliens are going to come and help us or protect us, or
maybe from one of the mean aliens that we spoke about just a little bit ago. I like that too. It's like, I think, is that called the Prime Directive? There's something in Star Trek. That's
Star Trek, yeah. Yeah, Prime Directive, yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense as well.
So the Prime Directive in Star Trek is a rule where, certain higher civilizations are not allowed to have contact with like less developed civilizations because it will affect their development.
That makes sense. And going back to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that happens there as well, where all the abductions are actually hoaxes. So the aliens come here and they pull a prank on us by abducting us and sending us back just to see what happens. I think that's,
like what? Just like a joke.
Just like a joke, yeah. Bunch of fat boys.
But the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, have you read the book?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Okay. I love it.
It's not the film you're talking about.
No, it's the book. The book is obviously it has a lot more into it than the film. The film is good too. Why not? Okay. If you haven't watched it, do. If you like science fiction, I really recommend it. Best science fiction. It's also really funny.
Okay, cool. So, possibility 9. So, higher civilizations are here. They're all around us, but we're too primitive to perceive them. Okay, so the analogy here is imagine ants, and humans come and they build like a 10-lane superhighway next to them. Would the ants be able to understand what a superhighway is? Right? Superhighway is like a road. Would they understand the intentions of the humans, or would it just be beyond them? Would they not be able to understand what the humans are doing? And the idea is that maybe there's other higher civilizations here around us on Earth, but we just can't even perceive them because our brains are not developed enough. We're not conscious enough to understand what they're doing.
That's a great idea. I mean, there's so much left unexplained, right? Ooh, that's something.
What would you give that out of 10?
Ooh, I don't know. Around an 8 as well.
An 8?
At the same time, we are, unlike ants, we do look out to the stars and we try to figure these things out. But who's to say that they're not doing the same, right? Maybe there's ants. Yeah, maybe there's scientists trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And we just wouldn't know.
We think the ants are pretty primitive and stupid, but
they have complex societies. They build large structures in cities and stuff. So that's a good one. Yeah, I'll upgrade it to a 9.
Maybe they're having deep and meaningful conversations.
Exactly. Maybe they're having podcasts just like this.
Maybe. Okay, possibility 10. We're completely wrong about our reality. So this is the idea that we think reality is one thing, this physical reality that we see around us, but actually we're completely wrong. So maybe we live in a simulation, for example, and simply whoever created the simulation didn't program in other intelligent civilizations. So we literally are the only one in the simulation.
So that goes back to the last one we spoke about, right? It's kind of similar, where either another civilization is so advanced they don't need to try to communicate, or maybe we are so low down in the ranks that we live in a simulation. I don't remember what I gave for that, but that sounds to me like it's super plausible.
Yeah, I do. Do you ever feel like you're in a simulation, or you?
All the time. Did you ever watch Matrix and the Deja Vu? I mean, that happens to me all the time.
So it's possible. I do think this, like, possibly we're in a simulation and we know that, okay, we're on planet Earth, this little planet, and we're in this solar system, this galaxy, the Milky Way, and there's the universe, but we don't know what's beyond the universe, right? We don't really have a good explanation for that. So it kind of makes sense to me that, like, we're just in a simulation. There's limits to our knowledge. There's limits to our simulation. And there's just nothing else. It's just us on this planet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final question. So we've gone through all the 10 theories. So I think I know the answer to this, but do you think there are other intelligent civilizations in our galaxy?
I think so. Just looking at how big the galaxy is, I think there's definitely something going on out there. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how intelligent they are, if they're able to travel such vast distances. But yeah, I think we're not alone.
Yeah. So I agree. I think probably, I don't know, but it makes sense to me that there are probably many different civilizations in our galaxy, and they're just so far away that we haven't yet made contact.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final question is, do you believe that they're visiting us on Earth? So all these people who see UFOs, and
Yeah.
do you think that they are, or?
I don't know, maybe they are. The thing I find really silly is that why would they visit us to kind of probe us? You know how you listen to these abductions, and it just strikes me as weird as that somebody would come through all these, just travel hundreds of thousands of millions of miles, get here and try to stick stuff up our orifices, you know? So I don't know about that one. They might be visiting us. I don't think they're abducting us in the way that some people say. Oh,
Okay,
no.
yeah. Some people maybe just want attention, so they say they've been abducted.
Or
But
maybe they have been abducted. Who am I to say? I never had that experience.
I don't know.
I don't actually want that experience either.
Okay. But yeah, I agree. I think it's totally possible that other UFOs and aliens are flying around and watching us. But I do think, like, whenever someone shows a video and it's such low quality, the video resolution, and I just think in today's age, like, even if you had your iPhone or something, you'd get a pretty good image on the video. So I think, like, someone needs to capture a really clear image, and then I'll believe. But I think it's possible. I think it is possible. Okay. Okay, so let's end there, because I think we've reached our time. But before we finish, I want to say a few things. So if you enjoyed listening to this, please leave a comment on the website of schoolofduda.com or on Instagram. Also, if you'd like to support this podcast, then please consider sharing it with a friend or leaving a review on wherever you're listening to this podcast. And yeah, I'd just like to say big thank you to Pedro for talking to me about the Fermi Paradox.
Yeah, great being here. I love talking about this just weird stuff.
Okay. Hopefully our listeners are going to be able to understand what we're saying. I feel like it's quite a dense subject, yeah. But let's see. Okay. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode. Until next time.
If there's anything to do, joinha.
Pedro, give me a thumbs up here. Okay. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo.
Right on time as well.
Okay, thank you for listening. You made it to the end, so that's a good sign. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I just want to remind you that you can access the course I created about this topic on my website. I'm making it free for the first 100 students. There is more than 1 hour of content for you to study and listen to about the Fermi Paradox, and it's a really fascinating and entertaining subject and a great way to develop your English. Look out for the link below, or you can find it directly on schoolofduda.com. Okay, that is it. Have a wonderful week, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.